How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Geek-Stew. And today, guys, welcome back to a Geek Rants with Ike. That is right. So today, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of where I'm going to take, I guess you could say, Geek Rants in the future. Actually, I recently got back from vacation, and over vacation, I had some videos uploaded and everything else. So obviously, feel free to go check those out. So I recently got back from vacation, so I wanted to take a moment to sort of think, hey, what do I want to do, on the channel and everything else. And I also took it as a time to kind of relax and everything else. So that's kind of what I did. But I did take a moment over my vacation to think about what I wanted to do with the channel. Obviously, we're bringing back Control Over C, and I do want to continue to do some app reviews, and then, horror stew, and of course, conspiracy theories with Ike. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what I want to do with Geek Rants. So moving forward, Geek Rants is going to be sort of like an all-encompassing identity for anything that I have an opinion on. And to sort of give an idea, what that means or what that looks like for you guys, is today's video, I'm going to talk about the final boss of Resident Evil 8. Now, I've talked about how I really loved Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 8 was a great game, had a great story and everything else, but I genuinely had very little issue with the game. But one of the very few issues that I had was with the final boss. So to sort of take a look as to where this, this series will go in the future, I am going to talk about the final boss of Resident Evil 8. I am going to talk about Mother Miranda. If you have not played the game, or if you have been trying to avoid spoilers, or whatever the case may be, this is a big old spoiler alert for you. I am talking specifically about a boss battle that happens at the end of Resident Evil 8. So please click off now. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. It's a great game. So that being said, let's get into it. Let's talk about my issues and my rant about the boss battle in Resident Evil 8. So if you don't know, Mother Miranda is the character in Resident Evil 8, the titular bad guy, who essentially orchestrates the kidnapping of your daughter, Rose, and subsequent attacks on you as well as your family. Now, if you have not play the game, or if you have no desire to play the game, I will give you a small little snippet about how you get from being just a normal person, surviving Resident Evil 7, just trying to thrive, to having to face off against whoever the fuck this woman is. Long story short, Mother Miranda wants Rose because Rose is born from Mia, who had part your DNA, part her DNA, and is essentially a perfected version of Evelyn, or the original version, which is Mother Miranda's daughter. The whole concept is that she has some sort of bioweapon power that makes her stronger than anybody else, and basically Mother Miranda wants to try and use that power to basically revive and reborn her daughter, right? She wants to bring her back from the dead and basically wants to start anew. Long story short, it doesn't really work out that way. Ethan Winters basically goes in. He went to chew ass and eat bubble gum, or whatever the hell they... No, I'm kidding. Beat ass and chew bubble gum, and he's completely out of bubble gum. He beat ass, kicked everybody in the face, sent him packing, all the lords, and now he's on to Mother Miranda because that's the final bad guy. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because there's a very important thing to be taken into consideration, is that Mother Miranda's power is derived from I think it's like the metamycite or something like that. And it gives her very similar powers to Evelyn, where she has control of sort of this weird substance, and she can use it to form around her and then give her wings, or create balls of, whatever the hell, moss, and throw it at you and whatnot. And so the final boss battle is pretty much just you against Mother Miranda and through her different phases. Now, I'm not going to get super in detail about the different phases. If you want to know what those are, there are plenty of videos out there. There are also plenty of gameplay videos that show you in depth what the phases are, what they do, and everything else. But what I wanted to kind of get to is why I didn't like this boss battle, and why I thought it was sort of anticlimactic for the game, but also anticlimactic for what we were building towards. That being said, I will also be comparing this boss to the previous boss of Resident Evil 7, which had a similar issue. So if you've not played Resident Evil 7, Also, small spoiler warning there. So, what did I not like about Mother Miranda and her battle with Ethan Winters? Long story short, it was boring. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. It was boring. You look back at some of the biggest and baddest fights with some of the other, big baddies from the other Resident Evil games, and Mother Miranda had a very similar issue to Evelyn from the end of Resident Evil 7. They were too easy and they were boring. I hate to say it. Even on harder difficulties, as I've learned, they are still easier boss battles than I have seen in earlier entries into the franchise. Now, obviously, not every game is going to have great boss battles, but when you have so many great boss battles leading up to this, it seems almost like a spit in the face that this boss battle is so boring. Now, I say it was easy, but it was easy once you know what you're doing. It is very difficult to really survey what is happening with the Mother Miranda fight, which is fine. It adds a level of difficulty to it. And that definitely on your first playthrough, you're going to be like, okay, wow, like what am I doing? When do I need to attack? Is there a weak point? There's not really a weak point per se. It's more of just an overall pump them full of lead to hopefully get the desired result type deal. Resident Evil 7, of course, had a similar issue where Evelyn's final boss fight after you, make your way from the cargo carrier and whatnot. It's sort of a boring fight because there's really nothing to it. You just kind of do what you need to do. With that being said, kind of the long and short of, the issues with Resident Evil 7 that also kind of translates to Resident Evil 8 is that with Evelyn, it was just one of the situations where you kind of walk in the house, kind of have that cool, trippy flashback issue where she's in your head, right? And she's kind of showing you the stuff that happened to you previously. And then you kind of get upstairs and then you just kind of inject her with the I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically a serum that essentially just starts to degrade her because of her the virus the mold or the fungus that's inside her, right? And then you kind of fast forward here to Resident Evil 8, and it's a similar issue of it's a pretty straightforward battle. The terrain is kind of boring. Really, you're just kind of in one spot. It does sort of remind me of some older, games where it was a very simple type deal, and I do appreciate that, but at the same juncture, it kind of seems that with the modern technology that we have, they could have made the boss battle a little more expansive. Even with Resident Evil 7, they at least took you through the original house that you started in, right? And then they also took you outside to some respect. And obviously, I'm not expecting some grandiose, absurd boss battle, such as the likes of like Resident Evil Revelations 2, or I'm trying to think of another really just crazy one, or like Code Veronica, for instance, facing off against Alexia Ashford and everything else. But I do think that there could have been more flavor, if you will, added into it. Now, obviously, I'm not a game developer. I don't know what their budget was like, so this all could just be fruitless bitching and moaning, and for that, I am truly sorry. But I do think that to some respect that the Resident Evil 8 boss was fun, but boring, simple, and I don't know, because for instance, just some context, the boss battle for Lady Dimitrescu, for instance, that had sort of a similar issue, but you had this definite sense of impending doom because the environment around you was destructible. Not only was the environment destructible, but you also had the issue arise of she's going to come at you, she's going to transform. She had different phases, and those phases basically escalated. I felt like with Mother Miranda, the phases were more flatlined than anything else. Each of them had their own issues, but none of them were particularly difficult, and the difficulty was only really perceived, or was only a perception of how knowing you were of what was going to happen. Because as soon as you figure out what's happening, it was simply just do the motions. And to give another example, for instance, I'm gonna probably mispronounce, but the Fishman, Moreau, oh man, Moreau was probably my favorite boss fight in the game, because I think that each of the areas brought a different level of horror, because obviously the puppet lady, the Benevito or whatever her name is, I always mispronounce this, so pardon me. She brought more of a Silent Hill-esque boss battle where it was a simple 1-2. You find the doll, you stab it. But it worked for that. It made sense. Moreau was definitely more of a monster attack, if you will. He mutated into this gigantic monster, and you just had to pump him for lead. But it was also interesting because the environment was diverse, his attacks were diverse, and there was also different ways to use the environment against him. And then you had the boss battle with Heisenberg. Heisenberg basically combined sort of a mechanical horror to it. You know, you had to basically hop in this essentially a ghetto Gundam, and you had to shoot him down, you know, and everything else. But he also had different phases, and then at one point you lose the Gundam, and you have to attack him with just what you have on you, and it's a difficult game. It's a difficult process because he's definitely more of a match for you than you are, and the cutscenes also help add to that. Now, Mother Miranda's boss battle basically took the worst thing out of all of them, which was that it was just a very flat playthrough. There was not really much diversity in the area. There's not much diversity in her attacks. Basically, they kind of recycled like the same 2 to 3 things and sort of just pumped them out at you. And it really wasn't what I was looking for in a final boss battle for Resident Evil. I'm expecting something a little more grandiose, especially for someone who's been hyped up through the entirety of this game. So, that being said, I don't want to really dwell on it too much longer, but that was kind of my main issue with the Mother Miranda battle. Of course, Resident Evil 8 still hit it out of the park for me. I still loved it. I still thought that this is probably one of the best Resident Evil mainline titles that we've gotten in years. Resident Evil 7 was a great start to this trilogy, and I'm super excited for Resident Evil 9 because Resident Evil 8 just quenched my thirst so well. But that being said, I'm not going to continue to dwell on. I do have a couple final thoughts and I want to close this out, but just so good, but we could have done better. As I always say, I'm going to just kind of go out here and just say a couple other things before I close out, but if you've not played Resident Evil 8, give it a shot. Resident Evil 8 is a great game. Play Resident Evil 7 as well. Honestly, play all the Resident Evil games. If you've never sat down and played them, I would do it. Obviously, I'm not telling you to emulate some of the older games, but if you can't find a copy, maybe there might be another way to do it. Just kidding, of course. For legal purposes, that is a joke. But just to be fair, you know, there's remakes of a lot of the games that are more commonly, you know, accessible on the more modern systems. You may not be able to find the original 1, 2, and 3 and everything else, but a lot of the other games you're going to be able to find pretty easily. A lot of the remakes and the 4 through 6 and everything else were remastered and everything else, so definitely feel free to go out there and play those. Highly recommend it. If you've not gotten to Resident Evil yet, it's a perfect time to do it because they're continuing to make games. Something I read said that they're going to make Resident Evil 9 and then they're going to stop making main title games and just start doing a bunch of remakes and spin-off titles, which is fine with me. Some of my favorite Resident Evil moments in games came from spin-off titles, and I think I've talked a lot about how I really liked Revelations and how Revelations was a spin-off title. Both of the Revelations 1 and 2 really gave such a unique twist on the Resident Evil franchise, sort of to give it, honestly, just that extra step of body horror. But that being said, check out Resident Evil 8. If you don't want to play it, check out somebody, check out somebody who plays it on YouTube. I mean, Bakpa Soup is one of my favorite streamers of all time. Check him out. He does a whole lot of playthroughs, and he does, you know, his own sort of commentary. He's a Resident Evil, I would say, connoisseur. He has played all of them, probably more times than I can even think to play them. So anyhow, check it out. Play Resident Evil. Love it. This is my Geek Rant. Geek Rant is over now. I'm done talking about Mother Miranda. But if you guys want to check out more of this, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always open to, you know, different, you know, things that people want me to talk about. If there's anything specific you want me to talk about, that's what I'm here for. Comment it, tweet it, you know, DM me on Facebook or Twitter, or, you know, I always say it, but if you want to join the Geek-Stew crew, hit us up on social media. We're always looking to expand our product, and you know, we're always looking for more people to add to our current catalog and our current everything else. So that's what we're here for. But hope you guys are enjoying your week. This is coming out on Wednesday, so it's hump day. Like I said, I had a fun time traveling and everything else, and you know, I'm happy to be home to an extent. But you know, I was visited some family in Florida, and I'm thinking about moving down there. So maybe that'll be something I can, you know, do and talk about at a later time. But anyhow, Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, stay awesome, and we will see you in the next one. See ya.